and I'm a junior at Penn studying digital media design. I wanted to share with you today the story of how Christ entered my life. It was only a year ago that I sat where you are today, and I listened to baptism testimonies, skeptical and unable to relate. A lot of them were very emotional and touching, often about how a hard situation brought the person to seek God. Others were about how the person had perhaps gone to church as a child with their family, but recently came to rediscover Christ or the true meaning of following Christ. I fit into neither of those categories. I was brought up in an atheist family, and I felt perfectly happy growing up without a faith. To be honest, at the time I thought my life without Christ was fine, great even. I considered myself a pretty good person, and my friends would have agreed because they couldn't see how selfish I was on the inside. Since then, so much has changed. Now that I know how good God is, I can see how broken I am. I started coming to GCC in January last year, basically out of obligation to a close friend. For weeks, I went through the motions, begrudgingly giving up precious homework time on Sundays to half-heartedly sing lyrics I didn't really believe in, and to peek while everyone else's heads were still bowed, wondering how much longer this was going to take. Eventually, I decided to put a little more effort into it, and at least give this Christianity thing a chance. By the spring, it came to the point that I actually desperately wanted to believe, and yet my heart and head weren't and couldn't be in it. I felt frustrated and impatient that I hadn't felt something yet. Hadn't gotten some sort of epiphany or conviction like the ones I had heard about in baptism testimonies, even though I felt like I was opening my heart as much as I could. I remember there was a sermon about how if you sought God, he would come running to you, and I just felt like, why wasn't he running to me? The semester ended, and I went several weeks without going to church since I didn't have one to go to at home. However, I had an internship for the summer in California, and on my second weekend there, I found a church that I really liked. The community there was so welcoming, and in addition to Sunday services, I started going to their weekly fellowship seminars for college students, as well as a few Sunday dinners at church families' homes. The college series was on apologetics, which helped answer a lot of questions and doubts I had been holding on to. And I also found great mentors and friends in that community who showed me how great his love is. At one particular college seminar, one of the young adult leaders asked us the difference between Christianity and other religions when it came to the afterlife. What would you say at the gates of heaven to make your case for entry? My friend answered that although Muslims might say they prayed 5 times a day, or Buddhists might say they gave up all desires, and so on, what Christians would say is, it's not anything I did, but what Jesus did. This really struck me. Throughout this time, I had also started reading the Bible and getting to know him better through his word. I came home at the end of the summer much more sure of my faith, having gotten to know more about God and what being a Christian really means. But at the same time, it wasn't anything that I did myself. It was God intentionally and gradually working to be Lord in my life, giving me space to believe, and in the most unexpected of places, giving me a place to find his love. Then I knew that Jesus did die for my sins, and I wanted him in my life. When I went to London for a semester abroad in the fall, I really took comfort in God when I felt lonely, and by his grace, I once again found people and communities there that kept me anchored despite being in an unfamiliar place. I came back to Penn and GCC in a very different place spiritually than I had been when I left. I signed up for a family group, shout out to Crystallize, which has been lovely, and I'm constantly amazed by God's working in my life, both now and before, and in the lives of others. I won't say it's been an easy journey. My parents are both skeptics of religion, and so were most of my close friends growing up. So for a while, the influences from my upbringing were fighting against my efforts to get to know him. Now I know that God works at his own pace, and that it was probably all in his plan for me. All I can say is, I had no idea. There was no way I predicted even a year and a half ago that I would be where I am today, following Jesus. Although I considered myself agnostic, I certainly would have balked at the idea of going to church. Now that I know Christ, I know love greater than anything I had known before. My outlook on life has completely shifted. I still have a tendency to be anxious about things, but I worry and I stress less because I trust in God's plan, and I know that I can always turn to him when I am troubled. I also like to think my character is developing. My heart is changing to be less selfish, more generous, and more forgiving. I try my best to serve as a witness to his greatness and love in the hopes that one day my friends and family will come to know him as well. I still feel like I have a ways to go in my walk with God, but I look forward to constantly learning and growing under his guidance. This testimony is still being written. And above all, I'm so thankful for everything he has done for me, For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God. Ephesians 2:8.